you, everybody. Can you hear me okay? I think you can. Is everybody feeling sleepy? I'm feeling very sleepy. I'm going to try and raise the energy levels by talking about minting DOIs for a bit. So hopefully that's what gets you going in an afternoon. So my name is Steve, and I'm an open research librarian at the University of Manchester Library's Office for Open Research. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about what that means in a moment. But today I'm mainly going to be talking about a piece of work that me and my colleague Eleanor worked on over the last year or so, alongside colleagues in the library and our central research and business engagement team as well. Eleanor wasn't able to be with us today, but she's here in spirit, and I'm sure she'll enjoy the shout out when she watches the video later. So we've given our presentation the title of Enabling Fair and Open Research Using Pure's DataCite Integration to Mint DOIs, and I'm going to be talking about how switching on the ability to mint DOIs in Pure help to shape our thinking about how we better support our researchers to share different output types in the most appropriate repository for that particular output type, whether that's Figshare or Pure. And just a warning to any Elsevier staff in the room, I will be making repeated references to a competitor product today, so I apologise for that. For people editing a video later, if you want to bleep out any mentions of Figshare and digital sites, go for it. That's completely fine. So in this presentation, I'm going to set out some of the context that we work with at Manchester, just to kind of establish what we're doing. I'll outline a specific issue at Manchester that needed to be addressed. And then I'll talk about how DOI minting has enabled us to support researchers publishing reports and grey literature as well. Hopefully that sounds okay. Let's get started. So I mentioned that I'd briefly explain what the team me and Eleanor work in does. So I'll briefly do that now. The Library's Office for Open Research team supports the university to achieve its ambitious research goals through curating, leveraging and analysing the university's current research collection. And we've been trying to socialise this idea at the university that we have these three distinct collections that we manage. We have our special collections, which I'm going to very dismissively call our old stuff because I don't really care about that. We've got our modern collections, which is the stuff that we subscribe to and buy for our students and researchers. And we've got this current research collection, which we kind of think about as its own discrete collection, which is basically all of the research outputs that our researchers are generating as part of their research projects. Maybe over the last 10-year window or something like that. That's kind of how we're thinking about it. So that can be traditional research outputs like journal articles and conference proceedings. It can be research data sets and software, code. It can be pre-registrations, methodologies, lots of different things. Basically anything that you might generate as part of your research project. We think we've got a role to play in curating that collection and doing interesting things with it. So underpinning this kind of grand vision, we've got three core services that we run in the library. We've got our research data management team, which Eleanor works in, and they're kind of focused on helping researchers to plan how they effectively manage their research data, and they support Figshare as well. We've got our research indicators team, who do a lot of work on citation analysis tools to help the university understand our current research collection and the impact that research collection is having. And we've got an open access team, which I'm responsible for. We're there to help researchers to publish their work open access in the most appropriate way. So just to throw some numbers at you, to kind of give an indication of the scale that we're working at. In Manchester, we have about 7,000 academic staff and about 3,500 postgraduate researchers. And between them, they end up publishing about 10,000 journal articles a year, give or take. And in the open access team, it's our responsibility to help them navigate the most appropriate route to achieving open access for those journal articles. Not just to comply with REF and funder policies, but to kind of raise the visibility of that particular collection that I was talking about earlier. Whether that be through transformative agreements or through payment of gold open access APCs, or maybe through the green open access route, which is where Pure comes in. In the data management team, they do a lot of work, as I say, on data management planning, but they also manage our Figshare data repository. They review hundreds of data sets and resources in Figshare every year. Data sets, but also other types of outputs as well. But for this audience and for the purpose of this presentation, maybe the most important thing that we do within the office is that we manage these two repositories. We support Figshare for research datasets, and we're responsible for the pure publications module. There's lots of other bits at university that are kind of taking charge of other modules in pure, but we have a responsibility for the publications module. And on the face of it, this distinction is very clear. Research outputs in pure, datasets in Figshare, it couldn't get any easier than that. Well, in real life, it's not so simple. So to illustrate this, we've got pure on the left-hand side, we've got Figshare on the right, and there are some output types which very easily find a home in one of these repositories. So in pure, we have journal articles and conference proceedings, bit of a bread and butter. In Figshare, datasets and software, but we have this annoying grey area in the middle of research reports or reports. So there's a number of reasons why people basically don't know where to put these. The lack of guidance around where to put reports has been a weakness. Really, they should go in pure, but we find that people are putting them in Figshare or putting them in pure and Figshare, which is not where we'd like to be. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. But there's a pull factor, or there has been a pull factor, which has been encouraging researchers to use Figshare when they're not really supposed to. So we'll talk about that in a moment. I'm just sowing the seed there. Before we do that, I thought maybe it'd be a useful thing to just define what we mean when we talk about reports as an output type. And when I was putting these slides together, I thought it would be useful to share the definition that they provide in the REF 2021 guidance. So I put that on the slide and submitted the slides. And then when I reviewed the slides earlier this week, I thought, this definition is complete nonsense and doesn't really help us in any way understand what these kinds of output types are. So we're going to disregard that. And I'm going to do a very gimmicky thing, a thing that's already cliche for 2025. And I asked ChatGPT to define what research reports are for me. So I said, what's a report in the context of publishing university research? And it says, in the context of publishing university research, a report is a formal written document that presents research findings, data or analysis, often outside of traditional scholarly journal formats. It serves as a way for researchers, research groups or institutions to communicate results, progress or recommendations to specific audiences, such as funders, policymakers, or the public, which I think is probably a better definition than the REF came up with. But while I was on the REF guidance pages, I did find some useful numbers to include in the presentation. So in the last REF, across all UK higher education institutions, we submitted 431 reports out of the 185,000 research outputs that were submitted. In Manchester, we submitted only 5 reports to the REF. Now, on the face of it, this might suggest that reports are an inconsequential form of communicating research, but I would argue that's not the case. While our reports might not be getting submitted to REF and might not be 3- and 4-star graded, they do represent a really important mechanism through which the university's research influences real-world decisions in government, health and social care, industry, and lots of other contexts. They're a way for us to very targetedly communicate our research findings to the people who are most likely to be able to use those research findings and put them into practice. And I think that's something that we shouldn't lose sight of. But sometimes these kinds of outputs are less visible than more traditional research outputs. And as I was saying earlier, we've got this responsibility to kind of manage this current research collection. And if we want to do that properly, we've got a role to play in ensuring that these outputs are more visible than they currently are. So one way in which we can make these reports visible is by assigning a DOI to them. And by doing this, it helps to make these outputs more visible, ensuring they're indexed in discovery systems, that citations can be tracked more effectively, and that metadata about them can be passed between systems much more easily, which is a good thing. DOIs and repositories that host reports are important in making outputs fair, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And we need to be able to provide a solution for our researchers that allows them to mint a DOI for their report. So that's how we ended up in this situation, with this annoying grey area in the middle. Figshare mints DOIs, and until relatively recently, we couldn't mint DOIs in pure for research outputs. But that's all changed. Figshare, since we introduced it quite a few years ago now, has been able to mint DOI, so basically whatever people deposit in there. So since we launched Figshare, users have been able to quickly reserve a DOI for their output, and all published outputs in Figshare receive a DOI. As this wasn't something Pure could previously do, researchers started depositing their reports in Figshare, even though that wasn't really the best place for them. They weren't really bowled over by Figshare's amazing user interface or functionality. They just wanted a DOI. They didn't care what the repository was. So that's how we've ended up in this situation. But since we were able to turn on DOI minting in Pure for research output records via the DataCite integration, we've been able to do some important work to clarify which output type should go in which repository. And the aim is to reduce the grey area around grey literature, if you'll pardon the expression. So on top of the work we're doing to create clearer guidance to researchers on this, we've also set up this workflow for researchers to request a DOI in Pure. So this is an example. I don't know how well you can see it on the screen. Hopefully you can see it okay. When somebody's creating a Pure record for a report, it comes up with this little box next to the DOI box that says, do you need a DOI? If you've published a report or other type of research output where a DOI will not be minted elsewhere, you can request one, and then we give them a form that they can complete. Once they can complete that, their request enters this snazzy little workflow. So researchers request a DOI through the form that I just mentioned, and it looks a little bit like this on the right-hand side. And really all we're asking them to do is to confirm that the report doesn't already have a DOI from another source. Once they've done that, it generates a message in Teams prompting the team to take action. And by team here, I mean me, because I've taken responsibility for this workflow. But eventually I'll let other people get involved as well. And it sends me a Teams message, which basically just says, somebody's requested a DOI for a report. It gives me the title of the report so I can go into Pure and find the record. And once I've done that, I go into the record and it shows me this option here on the bottom right-hand corner. So there's a button that says Create DOI from DataCite, and when I click on that, it creates a DOI for me. And that DOI resolves to the Research Explorer page for the publication. Once I've done that and save the record, the DOI is sent to the researcher, and they're often very pleased with the results. And we usually tend to do that within a day of getting the request. So far, we've minted 11 DOIs for reports in the last 6 months or so, which doesn't seem like very much, but it's kind of been a soft launch so far. And since I put these slides together, we've had 3 or 4 more requests come through, so it's picking up. And as we start to communicate about this service a bit more, we'd expect to receive more requests coming through. And so far, researchers are very happy. The feedback has been good. My minor quibble is that the DOIs are a bit ugly. I don't know if you can see the example on the screen there, but it's the university's DOI prefix followed by the UUID from the research output record, which looks a bit mad. It doesn't look like a DOI that you'd find anywhere else. So for the first few requests that I did, I'd apologise to the researchers. I'd say, sorry, this DOI looks a bit weird. And every time I did that, they basically said they didn't care. So I think it's a librarian thing rather than a researcher thing, and I've stopped apologising now. But there is an ideas ticket that you can support if you also agree that they look a bit odd. In terms of looking into the future, we're interested in minting DOIs for electronic theses too. That's not something we can currently do in Pure unless it's about to be turned on. I don't think it is. So any support for any tickets related to that in the support portal would be helpful as well. So that's all I had to say, really. I don't really have a very elegant way of dismounting from this presentation, so I'll just say thank you very much for listening. And if anyone has any questions about DOIs, minting in Pure, I'm happy to take them, but also fine if you don't have any. Thank you.
Thank you very much.